Rey Fenix. Rey Fenix, following his removal this afternoon from AEW's roster page, Mike Johnson, a PW insider, reports that Rey Fenix is now a free agent. This ends Fenix's tenure from AEW, where he was a part of its original roster dating back to 2019 with his brother Penta, of course, as the Lucha Brothers. Fenix has been off of AEW programming since July when he faced Tony Nese on an episode of Collision. He had been very vocal on social media about wanting to be let out of his contract, presumably to join his brother Penta in WWE, where he is expected to debut probably shortly. Davey, do you have any thoughts on this news, how you assess Fenix's run, and assuming he ends up there, how you think WWE should debut him?
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. I've been following the Lucha Brothers since Lucha Underground, and I think, like a lot of people, we watched AEW, and the Lucha Bros did sensational stuff in AEW. I was there for that match against the Young Bucks in the steel cage at All Out in Chicago, which was one of the greatest matches I've seen live. But I think there is something so special about them separate as well. When I watched them in Lucha Underground, I wasn't even aware they were brothers. It wasn't until they, after that, when they were doing the Indies and then TNA and AEW, that I realized. And I think there's something way more special about them as singles acts. That's not to say they can't do the tag thing. I mean, I think it goes without saying he'll end up in WWE. I think that's pretty clear, pretty obvious. But Braden and I on Up Next have been saying for such a long time how there's a lack of depth at the top of the card in the NXT male division. Women's division is incredible. The men's division has some work to do, and they're getting there with the likes of Ricky Saints coming in. Personally, I would love to see Fenix start there, because I don't know. I think the temptation to just have him pair with Fenix, with Penta right away, the temptation of having a Lucha Bros versus New Day match at WrestleMania, and don't get me wrong, I want to see that match, but I think there's something so special with them as individual acts as well. And I think to have them establish themselves as individual acts, which is something they never really did in AEW. There was that one match, and it was during a tournament where they had to face each other. AEW has a lot of tournaments, so I can't pinpoint which one, but they had a match where they faced each other, and Penta leaned a bit more heel, and he was ripping the mask and all that. It was magical. It was great. And I think they should try to resist the urge of doing that. Help that men's division in NXT on CW. Help bolster that. Have some star power for some of your big shows you're doing there. And then when you're ready, you can have them pair together. Like we've got Rey and Penta, which seems to be like maybe the direction they're going. So yeah, that's all I'm saying. He's ending up in WWE regardless. I think it's just, where is he with Penta? Is he on Raw? Is he on SmackDown? Is he on NXT? And selfishly, as the guy who covers NXT every week, I'd kind of like to see him on NXT.
I think you make some great points. By the way, you might be thinking of the World Title Eliminator Tournament from 2020. Would that be possibly it?
There's a tournament every week. Wait, I'm not sure, but yes.
This is during the pandemic, so maybe you're thinking about that. But I think you make some great points. I had pretty much assumed that he would join Penta on the main roster, but I do think there's something very special about this current Penta run that I don't think you want to cut short by just putting him into a tag team or even as an associated, partnership with Phoenix right away.
I think it would undervalue both of them very quickly. I think especially with the way this tag division is, like we see, especially the SmackDown tag, we had a great tag match tonight, but there's nothing special right now. We're used to seeing good matches, and I worry they'll just be guys in masks. And I think that Lucha Underground run, especially for Penta, the arm breaking thing, the master he was serving and all that, there's something really different they could do. And I think if they want to, Rey, there's only so many stem cells he can have. He keeps going, but like,
are you sure about that? I feel like the man has an unlimited supply.
I feel we've been saying that for a decade or so, yeah. But yeah, but there's going to be a point where they're going to want to find the next luchador, and having potentially a generic luchador tag team is way less than establishing these two individuals. And then when you finally have them together, I think it could be special.
So on that note, they do have officially they do have a brand split, but do you think having Phoenix on SmackDown with Penta on Raw, is that not enough of a separation?
For now, not like, yeah. I mean, I think, as I said, selfishly for me, I think NXT is the place. I think that's the place where the men's division lacks. I think you can have him as a star in NXT, whereas on SmackDown he will be maybe floating around with Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. Whereas if you had him on NXT, have a good run, have him as NXT champ, have an actual serious singles run, and then, 6 months down the line, all the odds are against Penta and Phoenix shows up to help him, I think that could be special. I don't think the split between Raw and SmackDown is enough. And SmackDown, especially the way it's been booked these days, which doesn't feel special. I just see him floating around with your LA Knights and Miz's and Carmelo Hayes of the world, where you could have something really spectacular with these two.
So, of course, the last time we had a similar story, Ricky Saints pretty much showed up on TV the very next night on an NXT. Are we potentially in a similar situation? Do you think those expectations will be there tomorrow?
Potentially, but we have a huge show in MSG, the theater, next week with NXT Roadblock. Like, that could be a good place to put him. Also, he's completely main roster ready. Sometimes I think there's a benefit having someone in NXT, and especially with the lack of depth in the men's division, I think there's something more you could do with him there. And you can play up. NXT has a lot more of the cute jokes as well. We've seen it with Ricky Saints. They push it a little bit more with we know where you were before here, especially with the TNA connection, which Phoenix also has. I think it doesn't have to be forever, but I think you could do something really cool with him in NXT. And yeah, I would strike right away. MSG New York is, for me, I think it will get a better reaction than just doing the PC tomorrow. But I do it as soon as you can, really.
My last question related to this. How do you think this reflects on Tony Khan, who, we don't know exactly how long Phoenix's contract was extended to, but the fact that all of these are taking place at the same time would suggest to me that he might be just making a decision to let go of all of this bad, negative energy, bad press all at the same time. How do you think this reflects on Tony?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because on one side, I get it from his perspective. It's, if you think these guys are going, why would you waste any energy on them? Why would you try to give them creative or any of that kind of stuff, or try to build them if they're not sticking around? If you think it's a foregone conclusion that they're going. I feel personally, someone like a Ricky Starks, you could have made a push. You could have been like, okay, what are you looking for? Because as much as I think Ricky Starks in WWE is a big thing in NXT, how much of an impact is he going to make on a Raw or SmackDown compared to how much of an impact he could have made in an AEW? There were those talks a few months ago about Daniel Garcia, and, clearly they talked him around, and he's the TNT champion right now and that kind of thing. I feel there was a bit of a lack of effort as well. Now, neither of us know what was going on behind the scenes, but from a public perception, let's take Ricky Starks. I've never heard him say anything bad about AEW. Okay, he had the photo taken with Cody, like secretly or whatever, like at WrestleMania last year, supporting his friend. Okay, that's Britt Baker was at an NXT show. These things happen. Like, it's
and I believe he's gone on record to say that that wasn't something that got him into trouble or anything like that.
Yeah. So he's been like he's been pretty careful with what he's said. I've never heard Ricky Starks or Phoenix, yes, but I've never heard Ricky Starks say anything negative about AEW.
Has he not said something about like maybe he doesn't understand why he's been shelved, like maybe expressing confusion for his status?
He's expressed confusion, but hasn't expressed it in a negative way. He's like, I don't know why I'm being booked. I'm healthy. I'm ready to go. So I feel certainly with the Ricky Starks, there was, for me, I feel like he'd be someone like, hey, we can talk you into staying and making you more of a prominent figure. And you can be, they're not going to use these words, but you could be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, or you could be a smaller fish in a bigger pond. And it felt like there was a bit of a lack of an effort. And when you look at, like, Ricky's last match was what, against Sting? Like, he had the Danielson feud, he had the Punk feud. He was on a good trajectory, and then it just disappeared. It's all been very odd. I don't necessarily disagree. If you genuinely feel this guy is not going to be around forever, to not, but I don't know. It just felt like there was a lack of effort with all these guys, that it was like, oh, you're looking elsewhere. There was never the thing where it was, hey, let me tempt you. Let me show you what I can offer you here. And I think with the case of the Lucha Brothers, a singles run, like, as I said, that match from what the AEW World Title Eliminator tournament from the pandemic in 2020. Yeah. Like that showed the magic these two guys could do as singles acts. And we saw like a tiny nugget of it with Penta and Cody. We thought they were going to have a feud, and then it was squashed in a Dynamite in a week. And then you go, oh, they're back being pigeonholed as the tag guys. And I think anyone who saw their work outside of AEW saw there was more than that for them. And I think I think there's a lot of frustrations with AEW right now because they haven't capitalized on a lot of those talents. There are your Swerves, your Hangmans, your MJFs of the world that they have. But when they remember that first, like, those first press conferences when they were outside in Jacksonville and they were like, we have signed Hangman Page, we have signed Pac, we've signed the Lucha Brothers. You're looking and you're going, wow, Rey Fenix versus Kenny Omega for the AEW Championship. That sounds great. And it very quickly didn't become that. And I think they had these acts on their hand where they could have done that. From a merchandise point of view, WWE right away, I was at Elimination Chamber, and the amount of Penta shirts, I saw 3 Penta shirts, I saw Penta masks and all that. I've been to so many AEW shirts and I've seen none of that. And just the lack of capitalization on some of these acts, where I feel like they didn't try hard enough with some of these acts. And these are exceptional talents, like any company would be happy to have. And just to be like, it's not working, yeah, you can go, feels a bit weird.
I'm sure you and Braden might be speaking about this a little bit more, especially if there are any more further ties to the scenario that you've lined out, of course, for his debut. If you like this video, consider joining our Patreon, the Post Wrestling Cafe. Multiple bonus podcasts every week, ad-free shows, and access to our full archive. Otherwise, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Thank you for watching.